What is up, everyone? Welcome back to the show. So, we are breaking the hiatus. Where the hell have you been? Some of you may be asking. And for the rest of you guys, you're probably like, who even is this guy anymore? So, I wanted to break the hiatus. And I guess the first episode back, it only makes sense to talk about what's been going on, what's been happening. And if anyone follows me on Instagram, you'll see there is a big transition happening as well. And I don't mean from a man to a woman. I just mean in life and in general. But I wanted to share like some of, I guess, on a podcast format, talk a wee bit more about the decision that I've made with the coaching and why I've came to that decision, all these sort of stuff. Also, in today's episode, going to talk about what's happening with the podcast going forward. And I've had to kind of not reset, but think about what's the different avenues or different paths that I go on. So anyway, without further ado, let's just dive straight into it. So first things first, I want to say, I appreciate every single one of you guys who've tuned in, and especially you guys who have messaged us as well. Now, for some reason on the Instagram page for Bulletproof Mindset, it doesn't give me the chance to reply back. It's like almost locked, but I seen all the messages that some of you sent, and I just want to say, I appreciate it. Everything is fine. One of the reasons that I stopped podcasting, or I guess if you're an OG listener, you'll know that I took a lot of pride in releasing 2 episodes a week, every single week, and not missing. Then when the podcast sort of format changed, we dropped down to 1 episode and then included the guest episodes every couple of weeks. And then it just went full stop, and there was no warning or anything like that. So what happened? I guess some of you might be thinking to yourself. And ultimately, I wouldn't class it as a burnout or as something drastically went wrong. I just got to the point where so many things were happening in terms of where I was going with the business or the variety of businesses that, I guess, if you want to break them down, and I had to make a decision, where does my time and energy go? So that's ultimately what happened. So each week, if I look at the avenues, in fact, let's take you back. So for those who don't really know the story, a condensed story is I was in the corporate world, loving what I was doing, making good money, but just always wanted to do more. And a part of doing more was always going to be, one thing that I enjoyed was health and fitness, was gaming, and then I guess a side hustle when it comes to the editing side of things. Gaming and fitness I tried to combine, and I used to do live streaming and that sort of stuff. But ultimately, it didn't, I knew from a financial career perspective, gaming was it was more of a fun thing to do. But one thing I liked about the gaming side of things was the editing and all that sort of stuff, making these montage clips, etc., etc. But yeah, I got to a point where I was like, right, can I do this? Can I go out on my own and do this full time? And that's what I've been doing over the last 4 years. I would say I've been quite lucky and fortunate, but ultimately you do sort of create your own luck as well. So coming into that with years of leadership experience through the corporate world that I used to work in, I kind of hit the ground running when I decided to start personal training and start coaching. And within the first 6 months, I guess in the first 2 months, 3 months, I'd done a variety of different strategies and got my books full. And I counted up how many sessions I'd done. That first year, I averaged 54 sessions throughout the entire year, every single week, in terms of personal training session. Some weeks I actually was up at 66 sessions, and others I was down at 51, 52, and so on and so forth. So in total, I have done 10,000, was it 10,100 odd? I can't remember the exact number. 10,140 coaching / group sessions. And that's not to factor in all the online coaching sessions that I've done, all the calls that I had with clients, etc. But ultimately, I've done a lot in the last 4 years. But more specifically, when I started this journey, I sort of had this sort of fast track. I remember one PT session I had in my garage gym at the time with a friend of mine, and she said to me, would you ever have your own personal training studio? Such and such, I know has got one. And when I thought about that, I was like, yeah, that's a 4-year plan. Little did I know the success I would have in coaching and just coaching the right people at the right time. An opportunity would come up to have my own gym or open my own gym. And that's what happened about 10 months in to personal training. So just shy of a year, the opportunity presented itself. And I thought, yeah, right, fuck it. I don't want to run a gym, but I'm going to have this personal training studio. where I can coach my clients, might do group stuff, but I love one-to-one. And for what where I'm going, like this is a no-brainer to take this opportunity. So I took it. And alongside of this, a big sort of goal of mine was one of the ways I managed to improve my own self-development and my own like, I guess, lifestyle, etc., was by listening to podcasts and listening to other people's experiences. So I always envisioned myself that I was like, right, once I get good at this, I want to have a podcast just to share my journey, just to share the trials and triumphs of the successes, the highs, the lows, and all that sort of stuff. And through that time, I was about to launch it, and then I met James, my co-host, met James in the gym I was working in, and asked if he would want to join us on this journey. So we were podcasting, and that got to a point where it's quite expensive to use a studio. So I knew if I was getting my own place, it made sense to build a studio. Fast forward a couple of years, or fast forward a year or two, add equipment, buy secondhand equipment, learning more about the editing. All these sort of things are building on top of still trying to run a coaching and personal training business, which was going pretty well. I must admit, it was working fine. Another PT was using the space at the same time, who also had a podcast, and asked if he could use this place to podcast from. He had no editing experience, or no experience from the podcast side of things, and asked if I would do it. And then the next thing, there was another referral, and then someone else, and then someone else. Then the studio side of the business, as in the podcast studio, that almost became its own business model. So trying to like deliver a service on that front while trying to keep the current client base happy, all that sort of stuff was starting to arise. And it got to the point where I had three main avenues. I had the studio side, which would be everything from people renting the space, want to coach their clients in the space, and hire out the space and the studio / editing services, or video content, if you want to call it that. In that little world as well, I started learning more about marketing. Myself and Gillian were looking at different tools and building websites. So that just sort of fell under that branch as well. The main bread and butter was always coaching and coaching my clients. And what I've tried to do over the years was, I was like, right, okay, it makes sense to go online because I can then still deliver a service, but I don't have to not waste my time, but I don't have to engage in a lot of one-on-one time. Like 1 hour coaching session or an hour of work is different to an hour on the floor, one-to-one PTing and that sort of stuff. And it's very time heavy, and I love it because it's where you engage in the opportunity with someone's health and fitness, their lifestyle, and you get to guide and coach them through that. I say I would never change it for that. I try to change that model and go into being one of these online PTs. And some of you listening to this were with me through that journey where you became online clients, or you only were with me for the online period. And it was okay. I just wasn't a big fan of virtually coaching people. Out with creating the structure for the programs, the programming side of things I loved, but actually check-ins and making sure everyone's doing right. It seemed like there was a disconnect there. So what I started doing was doing all my online clients, I would meet them in person. I would come in or invite them round to the studio, and we'd have this touch bases at least once a month. That was all well and good. Next up, we had still a one-to-one business. And then I thought to myself, like, let me try this group coaching out as well. So I'm exploring all these things. So we got the studio business, we got the coaching business, and then the second or the third part was the podcast, of course. And the podcast went through its own evolution over the years. As I said, it was my passion. I wanted to start it. I brought someone on as a co-host. That never worked out. And ultimately, I was in a position where I must admit, I was kind of fucked over with the audience and the style of the podcast. We built over 170 odd episodes. So I had to try and change that format. And that was almost like the final straw, like really try to push the podcast with the drag that someone else is sort of ridden on your coattails, if that makes sense. They've managed to latch on to your success without really putting in a lot of effort, I think is a fair point. So I was at this point where the studio business was growing more and more and more. My coaching business was changing, and I was trying to find a way to keep my foot in the door with helping people in that one-to-one coaching service. And then the podcast, I was kind of more, I was pissed off and where I wanted to go with the direction, because I thought the existing audience, the you guys that tune into this, do you care as much that the podcast goes from a setup where it's co-host to what I've then done over the last 6 months or so prior to him stepping away? And I just got to the point where I was like, what I'm doing just now isn't working. Last year, I said to Jill, I was like, my wife, if those who don't know, she was in our corporate business. One thing we always talked about was like, it'd be pretty cool if we ran a business together. So in my head, I was like, right, the studio business is marketing. It's all the things she loves to do. You come in, you run that. I'll kind of do the editing side of things. I'll show you the editing side of things. Then you can take that off my hands. And that means I can go back to focus on the coaching and focus on the podcast. What then happened was we were like passing ships. Like Jill was focused on doing her thing. I was focused on doing my thing. And everything was disjointed. Like there was almost like when the studio business was coming in, there was like a animosity, I guess. I was like, fuck man, like you're focusing on that. Like the whole point of this was to do it together. So I'd then get roped into some of that. Jill was helping me with some of my coaching stuff in terms of like the marketing front and the content recording. It just became a big shit show of doing a lot, but not moving forward, not actually growing the engine as a whole. And that was up until the last couple of months. It was kind of happening throughout January, February, and I thought, right, let me give the group coaching a try, because then I can consolidate my time into a certain amount of days. I can still coach, but the rest of the time I can spend time on the studio. And I had to kind of run that. And I'm grateful for those of you guys will be tuning into this. I'm grateful for every single one of you who came to me earlier this year, because as much as you are all singing my praises, I know I could have done a better job in terms of the coaching. And I know you're like, but we still got the result. We still got the community. We still got the coaching. We had fun, and we're now on this path of health and fitness. I still know the vision that I had for the coaching was way different in what I actually delivered. And that was the ultimate straw that broke the camel's back. It got to the point where I was like, right, the studio business is getting more and more work. We brought someone else in, so we got someone else's wages to pay, and then they've got their own mortgage. So that's a big responsibility. It's probably one of the biggest things that you probably encounter as a business owner, where you're bringing someone into the business and they're sort of they're financially supported by you, where it's always been me and Jill, and we could always go, right, we're just living on toast and beans this month, and then next month it's like, oh, we've had a good month. Whereas this time it's like you can't agree a pay with someone and then go, oh, sorry, like this month, like we've not had as much business coming in. And all of this business, by the way, other coaching, I put time into marketing and gaining clients and all that sort of stuff. But for me to scale that, I have to bring coaches in and I have to develop that coaching team. And all my coaching experience, I guess, has been built on my reputation and who I am as a coach. And it's always hard to replicate that. And I knew that would be a teething issue. And from a financial support side of things, to make sure that we are actually operating a business that has financial stability, the studio model makes way more sense than the coaching model just now. And ultimately that was a breaking point. I was like, fuck, let me just step back from everything and just think about where am I going with this. So that's where we're at. And ultimately that decision has led to me going, right, the coaching, I absolutely love it. However, in terms of where I'm going to be more stable as a business owner, as a person, and then for me and Jillian, when we have a family and when we are like, do I want to be trading time for money my whole life? No. Will I have periods and spells where I want to do it? Absolutely, yes. So the coaching side of things doesn't have that opportunity in it, and it's just one of those things. I feel like I've gained my reps in it. However, when I crunched the numbers and looked at, I've only done over 10,000 hours of one-to-one coaching, and well, on top of that, probably more. I'm still new on that journey. And if I look forward to the next couple of years, I've got some massive milestones I want to hit when it comes to the business side of things, when it comes to the freedom, the lifestyle that I want to live as well. And I just, right now, I can see that the studio is going to unlock more of that opportunity than what the coaching is. And really the biggest thing it comes down to is Jill was running the studio, I was running the coaching, we were going home. Jill was interested in some of the stuff I was doing. I was trying to be interested in some of the, because she was like She's went from working in a corporate job or working in her life and then starting being a business owner and trying to work out her identity. And she's getting these wins that, like a sales call or pitching to a new client and win a new client on. And I never felt, I was like I'm struggling to feel excited about that because I've got the stress of all this coaching stuff that's going on. And I didn't like that. And that's where I got to the point where I was like, right, this is what needs to happen. I want to come all in on the studio side of the business, and we're going to grow that together. We're going to work on that together. As for the podcast, this is going to be how I keep one foot in the door with health and fitness. The podcast, as much as, yes, it takes time. It takes time to edit. It takes time to plan the episodes. It takes time to get guests on the podcast. In terms of the art of self-development, communication, health and fitness is a big part of that. And I still want to host these solo episodes from week to week on particular subjects, whether it's health and fitness related, but probably it's going to evolve more into just sharing maybe some of the lessons that I'm learning as I'm growing the business, as I'm changing a variety of different things. And that's really what it's going to come down to. And I have to be honest, I have missed the conversation side of things, like being able to talk about a particular subject. There's something in terms of a skill set that creates for you as an individual. And then on top of that, the interviews, I felt I had a pretty good interview style, I guess. Selfishly, it's me just diving into someone's story to see what can I learn, what can I take away. Because I think ultimately everyone, the audience that I've created on the podcast, yes, it's more predominantly getting help with your health and fitness journey, but I want that to evolve because there is more to life. Like health, nothing matters if we have a health problem. So health and fitness is absolutely underpin that. But when it comes to self-development and taking that first leap into your own thing that you do, I think there's much more to be said on that front as well. So if you are an avid listener and you're an OG listener, some of the subjects may change, but ultimately it's still going to have the same theme to it. So that's where we're at. That's where things are at. Will I ever go back to coaching? Yes, I do have a grand plan of what I want to do for it. But right now, there has to be more. I think ultimately it has to be more of a business operation, more of a business operating than what I've been doing by spreading myself so thin, I guess. Where it's like I would work 12, 13, 14 hours a day, but not much is getting achieved. So there's a lot of procrastination. There's a lot of indecisive decisions that I'm not making. And it just leads to a point where it's like, right, cool, I'll do the bare minimum of what I need to do today and I'll tackle this tomorrow. And that's went on and on and on. So yeah, I'm going to revamp the podcast a little bit in terms of like what we're doing going forward. I've also went back and deleted like some of the older episodes as well. This might be more of a spiteful thing, but it's just ultimately where there's episodes there where we've done in the past that doesn't really make sense being up when there's no longer that dynamic of the show. So they're all going to get taken down and wiped. And it's not that we're starting afresh. It's just it allows me to then approach those subjects differently with the head that I've got on me now, more from a solo point of view than actual what I've done in the past with where we just talk shite on episodes really. So clearing the library of all them, because this isn't I always say we on this, and when I'm saying we going forward, it's going to be we as in me, Jill, Fraser, Luz, all the people that I've got that's supporting us from this business operation. So I think really that does that cover everything? Yeah, I think that covers everything. We're going to go back to our regular schedule, which is going to be every Monday at 6 a.m. And then guest episodes, I'm going to start mapping them out. To be honest, I've got like about 7 people lined up on who I want to invite on the show, dive into their story and see what sort of lessons we can get from their trials and tests and everything that they've went through in their own life. So all that's exciting to come. What I will say is the sort of studio side of the business has got a lot of opportunity if you're looking for someone you're looking to record your own podcast. Maybe you want to shoot testimonial videos. Maybe you want us to come out to your gym or come out to your site and shoot actual dynamic content that you can use in your social media, websites, funnels, landing pages, email lists, like you name it. We do everything when it comes to the marketing side of things. And I'm excited to grow that side of the business as well. So if you're interested in any of that, head over to the Bulletproof Studio page and drop us a wee DM. We're currently working on our form process, and that will be updated in the next couple of weeks. So aside from that, I'm still doing crazy things when it comes to my own fitness pursuits. We got a few challenges coming up. I'm trying to think. I think me and Scott have is it the hybrid games? Is that what that one's called? Done zero specific training, should I say, towards that. But you'll see probably more of that content coming out as well. And of course, I'll share it on the podcast journey. So, yeah, I think that covers everything that I wanted to say. We'll keep this episode short and sweet. And all I would say is, again, a big thank you to everyone who's tuned in so far. I hope many of you will stay over the next chapter that we sort of evolve into. And as always, if you've got any questions, anything you want to feed back to me, any ideas you want to give me, then please shoot me a message. You can find me at Coach Crossar, and you can find the Bulletproof podcast page at Bulletproof Mindset __. Another thing as well is probably the identity. The reason I'm going to talk about this in the next deep dive episode, but how to change your identity. My identities, and again, I don't mean this like physically change. If you want to do that, cool, do your thing. But going from being known as the coach into this next world who knows? Like, am I going to be known as a videographer? Am I going to be known as a business owner, an entrepreneur? I don't know. And I think that's going to be interesting to see what goes on there. Because there's a part of me where I'm like, are people going to think I'm a failure because I'm changing up from being a coach? And who knows? But ultimately, who cares? We can't let the thoughts of other people stop us from doing what we want to do. And right now, I see more opportunity on the table when it comes to the studio business. So, with that being said, we'll wrap up the podcast there. Thank you, as always, for tuning in. And I'll see you guys on the next one.